Morning, everybody. Very nice to see everybody this morning. This is Omnipresent. Though you see me actually in a different location. Oh, wait a minute. I'm not in a different location. I'm pre-recording this. Xiaobei and I are in Japan, and we're pre-recording this one because this is the session for the first session that we're in Japan, Omnipresent. So what is Omnipresent? It's a red tea. Red tea, as you generally know it within this shop, is unblended. However, Omnipresent actually has something in it. What in the world makes omnipresent omnipresent? It's these wild flowers. What sort of wild flowers? These are wild osmanthus flowers. They come from Guangxi province. Where's Guangxi again? It's in southwest China. And it's an area where lots of indigenous peoples live. And they pick these flowers. And this is a process whereby the tea itself is infused with these wildflowers. Now, if you're going to make good tea, if you're going to make really good red tea, where might you go? Well, we know there's really good red tea in Fujian province. We know there is really, really good red tea in Anhui province. So the base of omnipresent is really from Anhui province. And agricultural scientists, as well as producers in Anhui, decided to create this blend. And it's both, you can technically call it a blend, but it's also really more about the infusion process. So think jasmine when you think of this. And there's several reasons to think jasmine. First off, osmanthus belongs to, it's a long word. I don't really know how to pronounce it. I'm going to give it my Western pronunciation, then I'll spell it for you. The Oleaceae family. Oleaceae. You see why I had such a hard time pronouncing it, but you also see why I love this word, because it's got more than 7 letters. What else belongs to this family? Oh, it turns out jasmine belongs to this family as well. Anything else fragrant? Oh, lilac belongs to this family. What is this family? This is generally characterized as the olive tree family. So this really comes, these plants really belong in the same family as olives. Not as olives themselves, but as olive bushes and olive trees. So this has been in China for some period of time. It's first recorded being in China in the North-South dynasties. When are the North-South dynasties? Roughly between 420 to 589 or so. So don't worry if I'm off by a year or two. It's in that era that reference is made to this particular plant. And what is the characteristic of this plant? Especially the wild ones are highly, highly fragrant. What else about these? Are these used in traditional Chinese medicine? Oh, yes, they are. And what is their characteristic? They're warming. They're supposed to be good as reducing phlegm, or for reducing phlegm. They're supposed to also, or allegedly also, have the characteristics of being anti-inflammatory, anti-cancerous, And both of these characteristics are through the medium of not only the flower itself, but the volatiles that come from the aroma of the flower. In fact, traditional Chinese medicine uses this flower to help people who are unusually tense, who are wrought up. It is supposed to cause people to relax, according to traditional Chinese medicine. So this is this mix of really good tea from Anhui. And where in Anhui is it from? It's from Qimen County. Ah, we've heard of Qimen County before. We know really great tea comes from Qimen County. And the producers up there use special grade. Now, remembering that for the tea leaves themselves, you have grade special, then starting with first grade all the way down to 10th grade. Special grade through grade 3 all have additional processes that are done by hand, completely by hand, not at all by machine. So you can have good, not good, outstanding omnipresent, or you can have garbage omnipresent. Did I say that out loud? I probably shouldn't have quite characterized it that way. Lesser grade omnipresent. Ours is outstanding omnipresent. So what is this process like? Do they pick the flowers in Guangxi and then ship them up to Anhui and then just sprinkle them in the tea? Now, if you don't want a good blend, so to speak, you can do that. Won't be very effective. It won't have the lasting aroma that this has. This is done almost in a jasmine methodology, in the sense you infuse the leaves, and like Blizzard, the jasmine tea Blizzard, afterwards you put flowers in that have already been pre-dried. And you have this wonderful, wonderful combination. So is it as long a process as the best of the jasmines? Now, you've heard me talk about the best of the jasmines before, and the infusion process being up to 2 weeks, 10 days to 2 weeks. Well, this process really takes about 20 to 30 hours. And instead of actually moving the flowers to the tea leaves are moved to where the flowers go, because the tea leaves can be finished first and should be finished first. And then as the flowers become ready, because you don't have time from the time you pick them to ship them, even if you used a supersonic jet, that wouldn't be fast enough. You got to get the tea leaves into that area. So they've got factories built next to where these flowers are, within the relative range of where these flowers are grown. And the actual process is as follows. You usually pick the flowers and they haven't completely opened. So they're just in the beginning processes of opening. You usually pick them by around 10 a.m. in the morning. And they're going to continue to open after you pick them. And then you start to blend them with the tea. Now, what does blend them with the tea mean? Because I just use that term very casually. This isn't done casually. They pile the tea and the flowers together up to about 24 inches. And how do they do this? Do they just take, oh, let me measure 20 inches of tea leaves and throw down, 4 inches of flowers. Oh no. They do it layer by layer by layer. And what's the percentage of this first pile-on? The percentage of flowers to tea leaves, 40% flowers, the rest tea leaves. So when you pile, the first pile is between 2.5 to 4 inches high. And then you just keep adding that on until you get to about 24 inches in terms of the piling. Now, what happens when you pile tea leaves together and flowers? Well, we already know that the flowers have more moisture in them. So that's one thing. The tea leaves are going to absorb some moisture. What else are they going to absorb? How about some aroma? The olefinic characteristic of the tea leaves. This is a scientific, semi-scientific presentation. So I get to use all these fun words. olefinic. What that is hydrogen and carbon compound molecule in the tea leaves that absorbs the volatile aromas from the flowers. So those compounds in the tea leaves absorb these volatile compounds of the flowers. And they're not only absorbing that, but that's also part of the moisture absorption as well. So how long do you pile these for? Well, now let's talk about the mechanics of piling. What happens to the pile itself? I mean, it looks beautiful, smells good. These things are all true, but something else is happening. Heat. The pile is getting hotter. And this is the nature of when you pile any sort of vegetal material. It's going to get warmer. I said hotter. It's going to get warmer. So ideally, when this pile reaches about 60 degrees, that's the time that the aroma is most quickly absorbed. So pre-60 degrees, it's absorbing, but not as fast. At 60, absorbing real fast. Once you get from 60 to 68, it's absorbing too fast. So what happens as that temperature starts to leak up there to 68? The producers realize, oh, okay, it's between 60 and 68. We need to reduce the pile. We need to separate the flowers from the tea leaves. So they have machinery to do that. Actually, some of it is automatic. They actually also have hand sieves where the flowers fall through, or actually it's the tea leaves fall through and the flowers are retained. Yes.
Since this is such a delicate process, is my sense from what you're sharing, I'm wondering on temperature control and whether there are even thermometers being used, because in other presentations we've learned that the farmer's nose knows when it is time to shift tea to the next stage. How does that go for this more delicate process?
Great question about how do the producers determine when you've reached this maximum temperature or this temperature range that you should break up the flowers and the tea leaves. Actually, not break them up, but separate them. And in the old days, when they did this was all done through the magic of the nose. Not today. Today, they actually have thermometers because they matched it up to when typically the nose detects, yeah, it's time to separate. They've matched it up And they know that between a certain temperatures, they should separate. The nose is the final arbiter. So you noticed I gave a range between 60 and 68. So yeah, it might reach 60 and the producers are there smelling, oh, that smells good. Let me let that go a little bit longer. So every master producer is a little different. However, there is an upward limit to what they're going to allow it to go to, because they found through experience, if you go beyond that upward limit, it'll turn into not such a nice fragrance. So they take the flowers and the leaves and separate them. And then they prepare for a second infusion. But what do they do between this first and the second infusion, and why? Think about what's happened to the leaves when they were in this 24-inch high pot. Well, they've gotten a bunch of aroma in them. That's nice. What else have they gotten in them? Moisture. That's not nice, because if you allow tea leaves to have too much moisture, and let's define too much moisture, anything over 6%, then at some point you're going to have a problem, and it's called molding. I don't like molding. I'm sure you don't like molding either. So what percentage of moisture is in these leaves typically? It's somewhere between 12 to 18%. So they've got to refire the leaves. So what temperature do they use? Do they go in and put it under broil? Oh no, that's too high. You only do that to steaks that you want rare. You put it in quickly and bring it out quickly. This you try and do more slowly. So they have a temperature setting somewhere around 225 up to 250. And again, why aren't I giving you precise numbers? You know, every time you open your recipe book, you get precise times, precise numbers. Even at Sophie's, when we give you the rules for brewing the tea, you get precision. Why aren't you getting precision in my descriptions? Is it because I'm a lazy understudy? Oh, no. Well, that happens to be true. But outside of that, the reason really is because these are decisions that the producers make according to what they are smelling. And so there is this range that they can use and achieve what it is that they want. And every type, or every producer, every master producer is going to have, in effect, their own chemical signature, because they're using their nose as the standard, and that's going to be the same for the entire batch. But it may be different than somebody else that does a batch, and it's different at a micro scale. So for you and I, we might not taste much of a difference. In fact, we might not taste any difference at all, because typically batches are mixed by grade. So if it's special grade, it's all going to be mixed at the end of the day. If it's a lower grade, we'll easily be able to tell the difference between the lower grade, because the tea leaves are a lower grade and they're going to give a different flavor. Also, the care and quality of the blending is at a lower care level, and therefore we're going to taste that. At the highest levels, they're all going to be roughly the same, because once you're working with special grade, that's the most costly. So the input is the most costly. So as a producer, you're using the most care, you're using the highest grade of flowers, you're also using the most uniform. Uniformity in leaves, uniformity in flowers. and you're paying real close attention to what the results are. So you get that water down, you get the moisture content down to 6% or less. Usually around 6%, you stop because you're gonna infuse it again. And when you infuse it the next time, are you gonna change the recipe for infusion? Absolutely. So instead of 40% flowers, you're gonna use 30%. So you're gonna do this infusion typically 3 times. First time, 40% flowers, second time, 30% flowers. Using a lesser percentage of flowers, you're probably, because you've already started to scent the leaves, you're probably also going to infuse it for a shorter period of time. And the answer to that is yes, you are going to infuse it for a shorter period of time. And again, all of those of you who are looking for a very precise time, what, the first time it's 5 hours, the second time it's 3 hours. No, it's not that way. What else is there that's affecting the decision-making process of the producers? It's the actual weather, humidity. Because every humidity or every characteristic of the environment is going to influence how you perceive that outcome. So the second time around, it'll be shorter. How much shorter? I can't tell you precisely. All I can tell you is that it'll be shorter. They'll go through the same process essentially. The leaves will pick up a deeper sense of that aroma. So the first, okay, there is a big difference between the first infusion and the second infusion. The first infusion, the leaves themselves have an internal hint of that aroma. Which aroma am I talking about? The osmanthus, the wild osmanthus aroma. The second time around, it's going to be to give that external hint. So when you are done with the second infusion, oh my God, you smell those leaves, and even before you get the handful to your nose, oh yeah, we're getting that real infusion into this. Okay. So at the conclusion of the second time, what situation do you still have that you've got to work with? And that is, hey, there's moisture again in these leaves. How did that happen? Oh, that's right. I put those moist flowers in there with the leaves. So you've got to bake again. Now, when you bake the second time, you usually use slightly lower temperature. You want to get that aroma, not the aroma, but the moisture out a little bit more slowly. You don't have as much in there. Why don't you have as much in there? You used fewer percentage of flowers. It's 70-30 versus 60-40. So you don't have that upper end of 18% moisture in the flowers, in the tea leaves. You have a lesser percentage. So you get it down to that 6%. Are you all done? Of course not. This is special grade. So, and this is being done for Sophie's Cup of Tea. Oh, well, that's not exactly true. We get that special grade, but it's being done for everybody in China who wants that special grade. So what does the last infusion look like? The last infusion is 10% flowers, 90% leaves. And again, the timing is indeterminate. It's not really indeterminate. To you and I, it's indeterminate, but to the producer, again, they're using their nose. They're paying attention to the leaves. And at the certain point where they say, hey, we're there, pull the plug, separate the flowers from the leaves, and then you're almost done. Well, wait a minute. Why aren't you completely done? I mean, that sounded like a pretty complex process, and it sounded like you did a lot of things. You did do a lot of things, but look at the omnipresent in your bag. Is something added in your bag that I just said wasn't there? And that is, we haven't put in the dried flowers yet, have we? So separately over here, while all this activity is going on with the leaves and the flowers, there's a separate set of flowers that are dried to a sufficient level so that when they add those in the final mixture, you don't get moisture accumulating in the leaves. Yes.
I was wondering about, I'm learning that there is the super high grade, and then it made me think about smoky pine and jasmines and other types of very aromatic teas that Sophie carries, where the LCS or liars, cheats, and scammers will maybe spray on a smoke scent, maybe spray on some kind of jasmine scent. So does this particularly special aromatic tea experience that type of bad behavior? When is that part of the garbage version of this tea?
Great question. And so the question has to do with the LCS component of the tea market. Do they look at this as an opportunity to make money and falsely advertise? And the answer is no, because there's so little of this made. And as such, it's not a big enough part of the market. So it's a great question, because why do liars, cheaters, and scammers do the jasmine this way? Why do they do smoky pine this way? This way being defined as, oh, okay, let's just spray this on real quick. Let's not care very much about the underlying leaves, and let's just put it out there as if it's been infused in the regular way. Why do they do that with those two styles? Because those two styles are established in the marketplace. And as such, you really have an easier time getting into the marketplace. With the omnipresent, there isn't that much. And there isn't that much wild osmanthus. So the result is you truly, at LCS, it's a harder job to take advantage. It's really easy to fake jasmine. It's really easy to fake smoky pine. You start having to retool your fake factory to try and get omnipresent out there. It's not worthwhile. So that's why you don't see, and to date, we're unaware. Now, us being unaware doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. We're just simply unaware, and it doesn't seem, from what we've talked about to the producers, like there's enough money in it, and that it's popular enough and prevalent enough throughout China or the West for this to occur. Omnipresent is hard to find. There is not a ton of this being produced. Over the years, if this becomes very popular, then you would expect to see that LCS component come into play. But right now, what I would say is it's not in play. All right, great question. So the dried flowers as the last step are mixed with the tea that's been refired to make sure it's down under 6%. It's packaged and it's put on the market. So I ask you this rhetorically, why do they put those dried flowers in? Is this purely aesthetic? You see those flowers as a consumer, oh, I love flowers. Oh, no. It's because those flowers still have oils in them So that from a TCM, a traditional Chinese medicine standpoint, they're still adding value to the various things that are alleged to occur. And I'll tell you, that list is really, really long, especially with this varietal of osmanthus flower, including lowering blood sugar, lowering blood pressure. And remember, these are all allegations related to traditional Chinese medicine. Some of this stuff some of these types of allegations seem to actually have some scientific backing. But if you ask me, have all of these things been proven? I cannot find proof for all of them. However, that doesn't mean that they might not be doing some degree of all the things that they're supposed to be doing. Remembering, traditional Chinese medicine is not like Western medicine. Western medicine, you feel bad, you go to the doc, they give you a blue pill. No, not a blue pill. They just give you a pill, you take that, and the next day you feel fine. Traditional Chinese medicine you have to take forever, and it's gradually you achieve the effects. Yes.
So within China, is this particular creation of red tea used more medicinally by the population, or just for its fantastic flavor? That's would be part one. And then part two, then are the only other people who are buying these flowers the traditional Chinese medicine practitioners?
Oh, great set of questions. I'll answer the second one first. So the second part of the question is, are the flowers that aren't being used with the tea being harvested anyway for traditional Chinese medicine? The answer is absolutely yes. These are important within traditional Chinese medicine. So the first part of this question is, what about this tea? Do you drink this tea because you believe, in China that is, you believe that, okay, I noticed my blood pressure is a little high this morning, I'm going to start drinking this. Is that the methodology you use in China? No, it really isn't. You're drinking it in China if a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner tells you, you have certain tendencies, you should start drinking this. So that's one reason. Second reason, which is a more popular reason, is you like the flavor. You find at your tea dispenser, hey, I got this special tea. Not much of it. It's really special because it's got the wildflowers. Here, try a little bit. You try it. Oh my God, that's really good. I want that. So the majority of purchases are for that reason. Secondarily, it's if a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner lets you know. So that's the totality of the process. I'm going to have the tea master come up, and she's going to demonstrate how to brew this tea. And we're not going to go through 2 demonstrations. So if you happen to have the tea leaves with you, follow right along with her right now. So without further ado, it is my great pleasure to bring in the tea master. You go ahead.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. How are you? It's right. We do red tea, hong cha, right. So this is my trade, tea trade. So also the same usual, So this is my style. So it's somebody like copy me, It's the easy, so display the steam. Okay, just copy me.
Okay, so this is her starting tableau. She uses 3 cups so you can dissipate the steam faster. But if you're only using 2 cups, that's okay. It's not an issue. You would not brew this in an I Ching pot. This is a red tea, so you're gonna brew it uncovered. That's the first thing. And secondarily, you're gonna brew it in glass because that dissipates the heat. Glass dissipates the heat faster than ceramics. And this tea likes dissipated heat. So you notice her first step is to make sure all the glasses are really, really clean. And that's done by putting in 200-degree water. She's rinsing out these glasses, rinsing the strainer, just to make sure that there's no interfering flavors. Having fun pouring it on the tea toys, pouring it out in the strainer. And now she's gonna draw 175-degree water and go through this process of dissipating the steam. Why in the world do we dissipate steam? Why don't we just take the 175-degree water that our kettle achieves and just use it straight on? Well, you could. However, you're drinking this tea presumably because you like that floralness. And liking the floralness, you want that bright. You don't want it flat. And the best way to make any floralness bright is to dissipate that steam and then add it. And so, of course, the temperature is less, but this is not just about a lesser temperature. It's really about dissipating the steam. And that's what's not well understood, because the thought is, well, I'm going to just set my kettle for 170 and use 170-degree water. You can do that, but that doesn't do everything that dissipating the steam like this does. All right, she's gotten her bag out, bag number 1 of this series. She's going to put the leaves and the flowers, and you notice this has the flowers in it, into a heated cup. And the objective of doing this is to go ahead and heat up the leaves and the flowers and start to get that aroma going. And she's going to dissipate the heat of the steam a little bit more, and then she's going to add it. And she's going to add it on the side. And this process of adding it, the way she's adding it, you see it's dissipating the steam yet a little bit more. And then she will set the timer, which I actually will do, to sampan. Now,
Second,
sampan.
3 minutes.
Okay, and we set the timer for 3 minutes. And so there's an aesthetic to this that is beautiful. You look at the top of this, and by the way, she's heating the cup because your recipient cup, you want that to be hot. And if you look at this, this is truly beautiful. You have the leaves by and large at the bottom, and then you have all these flowers. And oh, by the way, just standing at this distance away, I can detect those flowers. Wonderful, wonderful aroma. So, is there anything in particular that's done differently than we've talked about in terms of processing the tea leaves? No, the tea leaves, it's pretty standard. You pick, you wither, and then you roll. After rolling, you pile. And in this case, because these are higher grade, you take to a separate room, and there are hand processes where they shape, they do a little bit more rolling, they do more shaping, really a very detailed process. At the end of the day, there's about 12 to 15 steps that they go through, and then that's it. They obviously dry it, and drying it at the end is done through baking. And they get that percentage of moisture, especially for these leaves, they get it down again to about 6%. Sometimes the leaves that they put directly on the market, they get that down even lower. But these, they leave a slight bit more moisture in so that when they actually combine with the flowers, they know that they're going to go through a few more iterations of reducing the moisture. So they don't have to be as careful with these particular leaves as they do for the leaves that go directly to market. So that's the process. I've shortcutted everything. If you want more details, next week I'll give you, or in the next session, I'll give you more details about the actual process. Actually, the third session, I'll give you a lot of details about the actual process of piling and typically how long they do it and whether it's in a humid controlled environment. But for this, for the purposes of this session, we're focusing on the flowers and the blending technique. Yes.
I remember you said earlier in this session that the flower was, I think, written about in the 400s, 450s or something in China. I wonder about when it's documented that farmers first had the notion of in using this flower to infuse tea.
Oh, what a great question. So the question has to do with, okay, I said that sometime between the 400s and 500s, this flower was already recorded to exist in China. When did they, and that's when did farmers start to think about infusing the tea? And I actually have a pretty good answer for that. So by the Tang Dynasty, so that's sometime between the 600s and the 960s, somewhere in that range, already you started to have infusion, and you didn't have infusion in the way that I just described. Instead, it was directly pressed into the tea cake. Because remembering at that time, they were producing green tea cakes. It wasn't red tea, it was green tea. And just like with every other flower that they pressed into the tea cake, whether it was an orchid or magnolia or lilac or any other flower, the asmanthus was pressed into this tea cake. All right, so we poured it and we're going to enter the quality arena. Should we enter the quality arena in a different way than normal? And the answer is no. We need to go through the same process. So we're looking for astringency, we're looking for mouthfeel, and then the second sip, we're looking at the aroma, we're looking at the taste. So one of the first things I'm going to do is look at this beautiful cup. This cup of very finely crafted Anhui tea, and then, oh, these beautiful flowers. This is so pretty. And the smell is so out of this world. All right, and now I'm going to enter the quality arena. So I'm looking for mouthfeel, density, and after effects. And so when I say after effects, what I really mean is effect on the body. All right, let's go through. This is a 170-degree sip. So you can take a larger sip. You roll it around in your mouth. I am detecting astringency. For me, the astringency is mid-tongue, also a little bit at the back of the mouth. I'm thinking about aftertaste. I already get a little bit of coolingness with this in the aftertaste. I'm waiting for energetics. I have a hint of energetics, but I'm going to take a second sip and see if that is amplified.
it's so aromatic. It just flies up your nose and fills your face.
Incredibly aromatic, flies up your nose and fills your face. Great comment. The aromatic notion of this is not only the tea and the tea leaves themselves. It's actually both of them combined, because when you smell the wet tea leaves, it's overwhelming. When you smell it in the cup, it's actually also overwhelming. So this is a match. You know how sometimes it's not really a match between the leaves and what you have in the cup? This one is a very close match. The other thing that's a match is the actual tea liquor, what you imagine that this is going to taste like.
There's also a softness to this tea liquor that's surprising, because you said there's a red tea base, and frequently when I'm familiar with red teas, softness is not always the first thing that I notice.
So a softness to the tea liquor itself. And that's really true. It's mellow, it's soft. The energetics are already coming through to me as warming. This thing is incredible. And the color of this thing is beautiful. There is nothing about this tea that is unattractive. Everything from the tea leaves all the way through the color of the liquid itself to the taste, all beautiful and all balanced, because you can taste the underlying tea in this, as well as the wonderfulness of the osmanthus flowers. So this is what I wanted you to have a chance to experience. Tea Master and I have talked about this tea since the beginning when we got this. And for those of you who go through this, if you have questions or commentary, go ahead and email me. And while we're traveling, I'll pick those emails up and I'll email you responses. Yes.
Possible food pairing? This thing packs a punch and it's got a unique flavor. What would you think?
This does pack a punch. And so you could pair this comfortably with very nearly any more distinctive food, and still this flavor would come through. I would do this not as a with meal tea. I would do this as an after meal, but whatever you've had during the meal. And, you know, as I'm thinking about it, if you had fish for lunch and then had this afterwards, what a beautiful combination. All right. Today's session is shortened because we're not here and we're not taking questions, but we did want you to have this opportunity to go ahead and experience this. And like I said, we would welcome emails from your experience of this tea. And in the meantime, even though we're not here, you're supposed to do the same things. Take good care of yourself, and we'll see you next week when we do another red tea. Bye-bye now.
Take care. Bye.